Well, after having blue in the background.
No, I know why he's doing this. It's to stop us from recording longer than the film itself.
Oh, this is a good technique. That's a technique. We record as long as the film goes for.
No, we shouldn't. We
shouldn't try and aim for that. This should be like a last resort kind of thing.
The length.
We just start doing director's cuts.
See, if I actually had the proper subtitles for this film, because I thought it'd be too much
film really
distraction.
starts?
Yeah.
It's just a black screen. He wakes up in bed.
Yeah, because the
most
title
films
drop.
start with a black screen, and that's until you turn the TV on.
True.
The title drop is in about 20 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is a while.
Far in.
But we'll try not to have the title drop to our podcast be 20 minutes in. Hello and welcome. I did it. I started the recording before we were all ready.
Oh my God,
Classic.
I didn't even know we were recording.
What a naturalistic start. So who are you guys all again? I've woken up in this room. I have these weird familiar feelings towards you all, but this is the first time we've ever met.
I've been instructed to not inform Jono of his relationship with Ethan O'Brien. There is many crimes that have to be purged from Jono's memory.
Johnny, we have a history.
No.
So I'm worried about the setup that we're doing right now because I'm concerned that I might not listen to you guys and just watch the film without any subtitles in the background.
Yeah, it is a very absorbing film.
He does a little jig and he runs away.
Yeah, it's quite funny.
So welcome to my final pick for Mediate, where I've picked the film Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which we currently have playing, though completely muted and without subtitles. And that's probably a place to begin it a bit with the joke that when me and Harry watched this, we put on the Star Wars Attack of the Clones subtitles, because that was one of the few subtitle tracks I had available. And even with that shenanigans, we reached a point where we stopped paying attention to the subtitles, we stopped laughing whenever there was a weird line, and we just got absorbed into this brilliant film. And I think the fact that that's probably also going to be a risk now, as we just have it on in the background again, says a lot for this film. But,
yeah, I'm just going to do my best to not look at the screen. I'm just looking away because I'm just going to get drawn
temptation.
in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Ready? Oh, I shouldn't touch my own throat in case it amplifies the bass vibe.
Bass boost.
What is internal shotlight of the Spotless Mind? What is it about? What is it made from?
It imagines a sort of world where you've got this technology, but it's like very, very new and not very well known, that allows you to delete your memories. And this film kind of explores that through the lens of a relationship after this relationship has fallen apart, and one of the our main protagonist, the person they've just broken up with, has had all of their memories of him deleted, and so he then goes through this procedure himself. And so we explore this man as he sort of goes through from most recent to the first time they met, all his memories with his previous relationship. And sort of as he goes through them, sort of as they are deleted, he sort of begins to change and realise that actually a lot of these were good memories that he wants to keep. And so that's kind of what this film, I guess, is exploring, is sort of memories, the bad and the good, and sort of how we contextualise relationships during and after they have come and gone. Or at least that's what I get from this. Yeah, does anyone have any big thoughts to jump in about this?
It's got kind of a Black Mirror vibe, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's
better executed though, probably.
Yeah. I think Black Mirror would. I haven't seen Black Mirror. I'm just going to make baseless assumptions about
it's just
how Black
phones
Mirror
are bad,
is.
Tony.
Phones
right?
are bad. Black
is.
Mirror would do this and say, yeah, aren't people horrible people for using technology? Would be the Black Mirror take. Whereas even though I haven't seen Black Mirror, I feel like this has like a much more like sympathetic approach to it. It's the two leads. I'm going to call them both leads. We're not going to have the Mad Max problem. Who's the protagonist? No, they're deuteragonists.
Well, it's an interesting thing because like a big part of of what we see of Clementine is Joel's memories and projection of her.
True.
There is very little genuine of her we see. So although I kind of agree that they are sort of equal in some spirit, there is that kind of note of, well, actually, really, this is 100% in the eyes of Joel Barish.
Joel Barish, yeah.
God, I know
Also,
their names.
interesting names. They pick the names of protagonists of future zombie video games. Joel from The Last of Us, Clementine from The Walking Dead. Yeah, fun fact. Fun fact. They did that on purpose.
I mean, is that a fact? Yeah.
Little IMDb trivia.
Two people have the same name. Anyone else know any Joels?
Not that I can think of.
No. Well, the Joel cast is now over. Okay, I think we should also briefly mention, as part of like the brief recap, dragging out by calling it really brief. This film has a star-studded cast. I think
it's everyone's favourite from nerd culture, really.
Yeah, true.
It's how I'd highlight it.
You've got some iconic characters. You've got the Hulk's in it,
Mm-hmm.
Frodo, Mary Jane, the mobster from Batman Begins. You know, all the
Probably know him better from the Full Monty, but yeah.
It's got Eggman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
villain from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
No, it is a great cast. I gotta say, it's I don't know, because my feeling is I have very briefly forgotten his name.
Jim Carrey?
Yeah, Jim Carrey. I'd say this is his best performance in a film, but like it's very close up there with the Truman Show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've said it before on, I think, podcasts that we've done when it comes to this actor. He's so famous for being, and he is a fantastic physical comedy actor. It's probably what he's more well known for. But I think, well, similar to sort of Adam Sandler in that way, he's briefly had spotlights doing more dramatic work, and it's probably his best work. I would agree with that.
Yeah, this is of like all the things I've seen in this is where he has to, for the most part, be you're a mostly normal dude. Whereas like in the Truman Show, that kind of larger than life Jim Carrey can come through and it works.
And it's interesting because I think there are times in this film, I certainly noticed the most recent time I watched it, where there's parts of the Jim Carrey that we know kind of wanting to get out, because there'll be scenes where he's a bit more agitated, or he's acting not too much, but he's using his physicality a little bit more than the kind of very reserved, a little bit moody Joel Barish who's kind of closed up. And so it is fun when you see those moments come out, because it's almost like he's been so still for so long, every now and then he has like a brief burst where he wants to actually move his limbs a little bit.
Yeah, I remember when I first watched this film, just the way that he gets up out of bed, the weird pose he strikes, and just thinking, that feels weird. But then when it comes to, I guess, what would be the twist moment, and you realise, that's actually somewhere else in the time of this movie. Then the fact that is such a distinctive way that he gets up out of bed that time, you're like, it actually helps you like put the pieces together, or at least that's what I felt when I saw it again, because I was like, the distinctive way he gets out of bed in that scene, that means that scene must have happened then. It's all falling into place.
You're not Megamind.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of Megamind when I saw this, because it fakes you out. I mean, Harry obviously says brought it up, but yeah, it's like the Megamind like classic beginning at the end.
It was the first film to do that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually the first film.
It's the original.
It's the original 10. Oh, you beat
yeah.
me to it.
So so this does a different twist, putting the horse before the cart, where it shows you a thing that you think is the beginning chronologically, but actually you realise it's a future memory. It's a future scene.
Yeah, it's the second beginning. Almost.
Yeah, no, I really love it, because I think it sets you up perfectly for just the kind of general confusion of reliving your memories backwards, basically. Like kind of putting you off foot, because you see what you think, oh, this is them meeting for the first time, now I've jumped a year and they're breaking up, he's crying in the car, now I'm following the plot, having his memories deleted. Oh, he said something there about they met at a party with friends. I don't remember that being how they met for the first time. Oh, well, we were continuing on with the film, so we'll get into it. And then, you then see much later on in the film them meeting for the first time. You're like, what did I see at the beginning then? And then once that reaches the end, for me at least, watching the first time, that's then seeing Wake Up Again. It's sort of slotted into place.
Yeah.
Him then seeing the mark on the car, and you're like, that call back to the first. The first/last scene of them together, where she says she's wrecked the car. And you're like,
Kinda, sorta wrecked your car.
yeah.
I think something that sort of adds to the confusion as well towards the start is the fact that if you're paying attention, which you should be watching this film, you can tell that that there's obviously the beginning and that it has jumped a considerable amount of time to the point that they've broken up, and you're seeing things play back in kind of a to the moonish way where it's sort of going back in the past. But there isn't like a moment where it obviously makes that jump. You just you can just tell from what's going on in the scene straight away. I think the film has like a really good editing.
Yeah, you don't need. I mean, it would be wrong as well to say a year later at that point anyway. But like, you don't need some sort of passage of time. You just need, here is a man crying in his car, following on from a scene where it feels like it was him like really hitting it off with this girl for the first time. I can fill in the blanks here, and
it's a little bit like the beginning of Synecdoche, New York, where the film wants you to be paying attention from sorry, Tony. The film wants you to be paying attention from the first scene to make sure that you're aware of what's going on and that you're focused, because it doesn't like clearly signpost, there has been a leap in time here. You've just got to be watching the film, and I guess wanting to be engrossed in it to notice something like that. Well, to be honest, it's not like the most subtle thing in the world. Yeah, there's a time jump. You can see it once it's happened, but if you're like half watching the film, you can just get confused, I think, very, very quickly.
It's the same trick that Arrival does, right? It just shows you something and then shows you something else, and you kind of logically make the connection between those two things. Tony, do you know who wrote this film?
I don't know.
It's Charlie Kaufman, the writer and director of Synecdoche, New York.
Really?
Yes.
That's crazy.
And that's what I want to talk about, because I think...
That is... No way, there's got to be like 800 different people.
Okay, so yeah.
This is disproven like auteur theory for me.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing with Kaufman, that his early scripts were directed by different filmmakers. So he worked with Spike Jonze, who was more of a kind of, I guess, naturalist. He did music videos, but he brings a more documentary style to Kaufman's scripts. So you have these like existential, outlandish ideas, with presented in a very straightforward way. But then this is a collaboration with a director called Michel Gondry, and I think he's much more imaginative in his visuals, but also like a more humanist filmmaker. So the original kind of Kaufman script and what you end up watching is very different.
Yeah.
Gondry ends up getting a screenplay credit because they kind of does he actually? Anyway, I think Kaufman does win for it, but it is kind of moulded. And I think that's interesting that it is have those big existential ideas, but it is presented in a way where like they actually act like human beings.
Yeah, what I would say is, from what I've seen of Kaufman before, he seems like a huge cynic who hates the idea of human happiness.
Yeah.
And while this film is like quite sad in parts, I feel like the ultimate message is much more uplifting, in context to sadness. It's like it has like a good message and a good like uplifting positive tone that it ends on, which Kaufman will be like, you should kill yourself if he was left unfettered.
So when we talk about the ending, I'll definitely talk about like his original intention for the ending.
It's worse than what I said.
Yeah. But I just think it's interesting because for me, I think I do love Synecdoche, New York, because it's like it's seeing an artist like who's never directed a film before being able to direct their own.
Mad with power.
Yeah, exactly, basically, and
that's funny. He goes mad with power. And he makes a film about going mad with power.
Exactly.
He loops in on himself.
That's half of what he just knows how to do after seeing adaptation.
It is a snake eating its own tail. But this is, I think, a great example of like collaboration and different, like, I couldn't imagine Eternal Sunshine directed by Spike Jonze. Like, you need Michel Gondry's like off the wall like style, like the crazy scene transitions.
Yeah, like this famous shot where they're laying on the ice float is it's great. I think
like this is like the poster image.
Yeah,
or the,
exactly.
When I think of Spike Jonze, it's not really. I guess I see the naturalistic part of it, but when I think Being John Malkovich was his, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's something that's a lot more. I guess like deadpan and you know
flat.
Yeah, flat, very flat. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Whereas this, I feel like this is such an expressive story, told visually, especially when you have. I think with the subject matter involved, which is, as Jonathan said at the beginning, a device that allows you to erase memories, what that gives you is the ability to go back and like mess with set design in a really interesting way. I remember me and Jonathan actually... Jonathan's first experience watching this film was with me when we were on holiday together, and he was always going to watch it, but I like the idea that I can say, like City of God, I found another one of his favourite films. But I remember a moment where he kind of like let out an audible gasp, which Jonathan I don't think really does that much when watching like dramatic films, like he was that impressed. And it's the first time that I think that the ground kind of gets taken out from under you and you realise this film's going to go kind of crazy, which is when he's in the bookstore and he walks through a doorway and suddenly it's just a completely different part of his memory. Yeah, it's just such a cool moment because it makes you think what's next to come.
Yeah, because it's him, he's recounting to his friends the first time that he's seen the person he's just broken up with after they broke up, and it's after she's deleted her memories, but he doesn't realise this yet. And so he's just describing to his friends how she just completely blanked him and how that kind of destroyed him. And the way like it cuts to that scene to then show you, and the way it brings it back to him talking to his friends is he then sort of seeing her like getting with this other guy, turns around and starts walking. The lights behind him are just clicking off.
Yeah, they're like getting closer to him as well.
Yeah,
it's a good impending sense of dread.
And then suddenly he's through the door. And he sits back on the steps talking with his friends and continues the conversation. And just the way as well, it fits with the emotion of that moment. The the lights going off, the sort of zooming in as you say, and then just collapsing with his friends. It does so well at that, like telling the story. And it never it does do good things, but I think that is definitely like the highlight moment of that. Some of my other favourite moments would be when he's remembering the last time he saw her when they were together, and she's leaving and he follows after her in a car, sort of trying to get her back. But then he sort of stops replaying the memory and then just starts sort of shouting at her, being like, "This is all you. This is why I'm deleting you. I'm getting rid of you." And so as he's doing this, just cars are just falling from the sky, and it's really getting across this sort of feeling of devastation and sort of destruction that's sort of going on in the moment.
Yeah.
And another favourite background kind of moment is in the one of the final but like first memories of them together. When they've met in the bookstore for the first time, because as that memory is being deleted, all of the books are turning from having their colourful stems to going completely white. And I know watching this with Harry, he hadn't realised that until I pointed it out to him, like watching it for, I don't know how many times it was for you, but...
I've seen it quite a few times now. So
just details like that, the way like you see these memories just sort of falling apart and sort of breaking in the background. It's just so beautifully done, and sort of has you going, how did they do that? How did they have just all these books? Because it's not like a one shot and you're done. It's just some of the books now becoming white and then sort of rushing along. It's very, very cool.
And I really like how, again, watching the film again in clip form, despite the fact that it is about like jumping around through time and space, the film has a very like consistent visual style, and it never feels like it goes to like a complete, like, even when it goes to a new setting, a new location, there are some where they go to Montauk, it's a very wintry scene, some inner city shots, some shots that are just seem to be like an endless black void, but it still feels very coherent and consistent, which is good. I think this film has a good sense of restraint in that it kind of just sticks to being about Joel and Clementine, like their relationship, Joel's like memories of it. When I feel like Synecdoche, New York, Slyndosh kind of just goes off the rails.
Yeah, it does not want to bring you along with it 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, this does have a B story going along with the clinic that allows you to do this, where you sort of see the professionals, the person who like made this procedure possible.
The thing I really like about that B plot, and I think I might have mentioned this to Harry at some point, is that I love how the story finds a way to balance a really strong emotional core with going through Joel's memories of his relationship with Clementine and how that's clearly affected him. Like, so you can emotionally latch onto it. But then you've got this B plot that is kind of like the opposite end, which is kind of like asking, I guess, more philosophical questions to do with the whole procedure entirely, and whether it's right to do these kinds of things, who should get to decide that, well, what if somebody changes their mind, like Joel is doing, mid-memories. And I like the fact that the film gives us some time to follow that story alongside with Clementine's and Joel's, and how there are some moments in both plots that seem to really complement each other as they're happening. It's really, really cool, and I like that the film does that, even if some people probably find that it detracts from the main story. I don't find that at all.
I think it's a good mirror, since it's like a similar enough story. Like it's the same, like a relationship that got erased, but the context is slightly different, and it's a good like framing device.
Yeah.
And as well, you need it something. I guess there's multiple ways that sort of some comedy is weaved in throughout this, and sort of lighter moments, and some of them are with just those professionals just being out of their minds, like high, dancing on top of him as he's asleep. Like that does bring some of the standout comedy moments, but at the same time there is, especially with the character of Patrick, played by Elijah Wood, who is very good at chilling characters, I think. Who is someone who is completely abusing the power that he has using this, where he previously, when deleting the memories of Clem, stole a pair of her underwear. And you think for a moment, as he's telling the Hulk that he's done this, the Hulk is going to like push back and be like, whoa dude, that's not okay, but then they both kind of like both laugh it off as like, just like, man, lads being lads.
Wacky Patrick up to his old shenanigans. Again.
It does ask the question,
here's the shot. Here it is. Woo! Boys, time to clap, put our suits on.
It does ask the question, who should be allowed to be in charge of these kinds of things, because it feels like the sort of people that do carry out these procedures, while they're not inept, I mean, they do the job, they seem like competent enough people, they just seem very like untrustworthy. And I'm not talking about all of them, I'm talking about mainly Elijah Wood and probably a bit Mark Ruffalo, where how he was allowed to be in the kind of position where he could get away with doing something like that, because it is completely out of order at the end of the day. How do you regulate such a thing?
Yeah, the other thing he's done is now having all of like Joel stuff. He like steals a present that he was going to give her, and like uses his notebook to work out how to like seduce her, basically. Which ends up with the way that the sort of memories almost have this kind of residual emotional note, just completely messes her up, because I think it's probably put well by one of my favourite lines as well, which is when Joel asks Howard, is the procedure safe? Is it brain damage? Or something like that, and he responds, well, technically the procedure is brain damage.
On par with a night of heavy drinking.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a good narrative reason as well for this Patrick B-plot.
Yeah.
Because it serves as a good, like, motivating force. Like, I feel like the core message of this film does kind of come down on this side of, like, memories, like, good or bad. You should take the bad with the good type beat, whereas I feel like if it didn't have the Patrick element, there would be kind of this sense of like, well, just cut your ties and get over it, right? Like you would kind of be on the side of like, they both forget each other, they both go on with their lives. However, him overhearing in the sleep state while his memories are being erased that like, oh fuck, Patrick is doing weird shit with Clementine, gives you like this kind of like, oh fuck, he can't go through with this, he's got to go back and sort that out.
I guess it gives you a narrative push. But I still think within the characters, like without that, there still is that push and drive there.
True.
Like one of the, I think, moments where he does sort of begin to change his mind is when it's like it's a sweet moment of them together on the couch, and when he sort of feels this memory being deleted, he sort of goes, no, not leave me this.
Yeah.
Whereas sort of like, even with him, grieving over this loss, he sort of realizes, well, there's something here to grieve that I liked. I want to remember these things. And I think as well, I'd say the film also goes on with how Joel does try and prevent his memories being erased, kind of points out a good point of why it's worth keeping these sorts of memories, because Joel doesn't really realise why this relationship failed, is my feeling. And I think that gets kind of explored as this goes on. And if he had just deleted his memories, he'd probably just screw it up with the next person.
No, I completely agree. What Tony was saying a minute ago about where the film lands on, I guess, philosophically, is one that I completely agree with. Because if I take any idea or any concept away from this story, it's about learning from mistakes and giving yourself the opportunity to grow. Because what this procedure does is it removes your ability to do that, because you're in pain temporarily, and people will take that and try and forget something that they've been through. But then if you take that away and take away the pain you associate with it, then what's to stop you from making those same mistakes in another relationship again? And I think Joel kind of realises that, and he realises that the memories, while some are good and some are bad, are memories that he needs to hold on to, because they all have meaning. They really do. There's an interesting character. In fact, I think we just saw her on the screen now. I can't quite remember, but there's like a one-off line that I think Tom Wilkinson says, where he's like, "No, it's like her second or third time doing it this month," or something like that.
Yeah,
now that scares me, that line, every time I hear it, because I think, now that is just someone who is abusing this procedure to wipe things that shouldn't really be wiped. Now, I understand that, I guess in like a modern day world, something like this could have so many benefits. Imagine if someone had been through an incredibly traumatic experience. You could have the ability to wipe that away for them like it never happened, and there might be some repercussions from that for sure, but there is some kind of benefit to be found there. But what I think Joel confuses a traumatic experience with is just a relationship coming to an end.
Yeah.
And I think that's different, and you shouldn't really use that procedure for that, and I think he realises it, which is good.
One of the things that sort of took me a second rewatch to fully notice, but it's very well summed up at the beginning, where it is in the future, but like you don't realise this until your second watching, kind of going through. And he starts writing in his journal and remarks how, oh, this is the first time in a year, and then he sees all the torn out pages. And I think that is just a brilliantly said thing about the whole concept of it, where it's just like, he lost a year by having this procedure. Those torn out pages and what they represent. I think there's possibly even a part where he it's more Patrick coming into to Joel's room to do the procedure. And he sort of remarks just how boring his house is. And it's because he's ransacked it of everything that was interesting over the last year, because that has an important memory with Clem, and put it in the dustbin, because that's how, well, they need to get rid of them to properly delete it, and also it helps them with the procedure to, like, visualise the items. But, like, those two pieces of storytelling that I only really sort of fully realised on a second viewing of just like he doing this procedure just loses so much for him. Like that visual of the diary with a year's worth of torn out pages and
the kind of
an empty room.
From like my viewings of this film, I don't know if you'll agree with this, but the perspective I've reached of what the film is ultimately trying to say is that the procedure just doesn't work. Like it can.
Yeah.
I think fundamentally we're doomed to, in a cynical way, repeat the same mistakes. And I guess that kind of ties into what you were saying about like the importance of having the memories to like not repeat the same mistakes.
Oh, I thought what you were going to say was that it's doomed to fail because you can't physically erase every connection you have.
Oh no,
something.
I just mean it doesn't work because it clearly doesn't take away every example of the procedure in this film that we actually see. Ends up with the people going back to with the people that they try to erase.
Yeah, I think Mary is a good example of that.
That's the importance of that B plot for me.
Yeah, because the way, like, not only is she like on drugs in the scene where she's like trying to speak to the person that she used to have a relationship with, but like you get this kind of like strange like alien sense that like they're feeling that attraction to that person, and obviously. The main two as well, they also have that pull towards each other, and it's like they have that emotional response without any of the memories that explain why, which is quite like strange, but it makes it like compelling. It's like, okay, it's a good lesson. That's like the memories aren't, I don't know, it's more about you know your heart than your brain at the end of the day. That's the gayest thing I've ever said.
Well, no, I think it is one of like I think for me it's one of my favourite romantic films. It probably is my favourite. And I think that the really like cynical but powerful message at the end of it is the kind of ending and the fact that they will happily repeat the same relationship, which will end the same way.
Yeah, I wouldn't call that cynical. I think that's. I think
something
it's,
kind of sweet about that.
Yeah. So the Charlie Kaufman ending is we go to like them as old people. Like 50 years in the future, and they've just continuously been in a cycle of erasing each other and then meeting and falling in love, which is kind of implied in the dialogue. But I love the way it's put at the very end. But I think it's really great as like a kind of romantic film because of the kind of power of the decision that gets made at the end of like I know that we'll have the good times, we'll have the bad, and eventually we will kind of grow irritated with each other until the kind of little incompatible things eat away enough that this ends. But you know, it's worth doing again. Yeah. And that scene of them kind of like talking, like meeting each other for the first time was like these like deepest, like kind of darkest, like small little hatreds that have built up over the years are playing like in the background. I think that's such a fantastic scene.
Yeah, one of my favourite moments is I hate her hair, I hate blue, whatever, and then just Joel I like your hair.
Yeah.
It's finding, because they're sort of exploring a relationship's almost like that immediate bitterness where you just turn everything into dislike, or perhaps some of it is just I don't know, growing annoyed by some of the things that first attracted you, but that's not. I more read it as like that's the kind of knee-jerk response. Like you record anyone like a couple of days after a difficult breakup, like they'll probably go on those same sorts of rants. But yeah, I think one of my readings with the end is just sort of like if you hold off on going into a relationship because you're not sure if it's going to work out to the end with this lofty idea of like it's only going to be good and must never end, then you're never going to get into a relationship because like you need to go in with this feeling of risk and sort of knowledge that we're going to grow as people, we're going to change, that may drift us apart, we may have all of this, but you know we'll have the good times, maybe we'll see this through somewhere. It's sort of that's one of the things I take from that ending of just going for that sort of we'll probably fall out with each other sort of thing. It's like you can say that at the start of probably most times people have got together, like we don't know how this is going to end up, we just need to live our lives.
It's the same for me as the Before Midnight ending, and to some extent the Phantom Thread, of just kind of, you know, you have to take the good with the bad, and I think it's very powerful to see a film where it doesn't sugarcoat it, and you see the kind of the negative sides of the relationship, and in Phantom Thread's case, the kind of toxic elements. But but almost kind of accepting the other person for who they are and finding like a compromise within that. And I think all those three things kind of come at it from this. They come at it completely different ways, but they kind of all reach the same general consensus. And it is very like boys' favorite romantic film. Is like the slightly more cynical, surrealist one. But that kind of trio, I think, and we already did a podcast on one of them. I kind of really like that message that it ends with, and it's kind of what I want from this type of film, I guess.
Definitely one of the sayings or things I heard that kind of just brain poisoned me forever was hearing that like a relationship, like you will either break up or die at the end of it, and that's true like for everyone. Anything that happens, like it ends in one of two ways, and they're both inevitable, right? But I think this is it's interesting how it depicts like basically like the inherent mortality of a relationship. Like, you know, it's not going to be like Disney Princess. You know, you just age together forever perfectly until you like simultaneously die of a heart attack or whatever. It's like, no, this is going to have a bad end one day, but so does every living thing, you know, and it is ultimately worth it, you know. You shouldn't kill yourself. There you go, it's a good film.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just imagining someone like going up to their mate after a breakup and being like, James, I got the bad end.
he is continually picking all the wrong dialogue options in this scene.
Yeah, so the feeling I get from it, and what I think Joel should learn, but unfortunately can't because he's had some of his development like deleted over the course of this movie. But what I kind of pick up with this movie is that Joel's problem is he is way too closed off and like never really talks about himself or what he's feeling, which is what kind of causes Clem to sort of bounce off a bit, and then the fact that they never really talk about some of the proper stuff, or rather Joel never gets into his stuff, that's what kind of leads you to the scene where it's like, Joel, I want to have a baby, and Joel can't put into words why he doesn't.
He's an arsehole.
Yeah. And sort of as it's why I love that part of how he tries to escape his memories being deleted is they come up with the idea of retreating into his most embarrassing memories, sort of his vault of secrets that he's never told Clem or anyone else, and that sort of forcing that and like having that kind of moment between the two of like, here's some of the stuff you went through, and you get the feeling that he's never brought this up before. He probably should have. That maybe would have helped with some of their understanding. And like one of the big moments for me is, and one of my favourite scenes is at the end, when it's the first time they've met, and it's Joel finally having that conversation of why I left the first time we met, and I sort of think that's such an interesting, poignant moment, and his ability at that point to then change it and be like, well, what if I'd stayed? And like that's, I don't know, such good kind of character growth, I guess, over the course, and it is so tragic that then that is a moment that is kind of lost in his memory, and yeah. But no, again, I think part of why their relationship didn't work out is because they never had those sorts of moments to sit down and kind of be like, hey, why did you do that back then? What's going on in the head of Joel?
I think,
and I think possibly this film lacks a bit in its ability to have the same for Clem, but it's because it's not in Clem's head. But anyway, what were you going to say?
Sorry, I was just going to say, I think it's like, the way I see how it turns out is like, they're as much as this is like a Disney princess way to look at it, I think they do have like a connection to each other, where it's like, even though they go through this horrible breakup, I think in a world where the memory erasure device doesn't exist, they kind of do just like, like if the memory device didn't exist, you know, there's the scene where Joel comes back and apologizes, and like maybe things play out differently. Like at least that's the way I read it. You know, that's kind of like the optimistic hope I have, and so I think maybe part of like the core part of this film of like, okay, this memory fucking procedure happens and it's bad for them ultimately, because you've kind of got to just sort of sit with like bad things that happen and
That's
deal
a
with
good
them.
cut.
Yeah, just interrupting Tony's bit, but yeah, cool cut.
It is a good cut.
Transition between memories where he's sort of, after chasing her down on the street, then over the floor, just kind of does a rumble tumble back up onto the sofa, and then cut. It's them just chilling on the sofa.
I know they probably just did it in reverse, where he like leaped out of a couch and then they played it in reverse. But I like to imagine Jim Carrey can just do that with his body because he's such a skilled physicist.
You know, it's possible to flip the footage in reverse, right?
That's a
high
level directing technique.
Pioneered by us.
Yeah, I will go back to a bit I love where you see he's also on the television underneath in that memory, holding the thing of takeout. Yeah, just see it on the TV.
That's cool. That's cool.
It's just little details of that where it's just like this. These are memories. This is all the weird space that we're exploring here.
It's what the director does really well. Is not only the transitions, but that like kind of, and also like there's kind of a sinister uncanniness to a lot of them. Like the one where he can't turn Elijah Wood around. Because he hasn't seen that face, and I love. A lot of the effects actually for the time, like I was saying in a different podcast, the early 2000s and late 90s had this like weird uncanniness, especially with a lot of special effects. And I think this kind of like plays into the uncanniness, and it works really well.
The bit where he goes into a deleted memories, and everyone's just like these weird flesh. There's no facial features. It's just a flesh. The kind of distorted sound from before.
The John Bryan music is pretty good for that as well, because not only in the emotional moment you were talking about earlier is it like a very sentimental piano that kind of makes you want to cry, but like the kind of building tension in some of the pieces, especially in those scenes where he's like walking her through all these like nightmarish memories, and you have Patrick, you kind of have the score kind of building and escalating and kind of creating a lot of tension.
It's a very personal story, but what it manages to do so well, that we were just talking about, is on kind of a small budget have a lot of ambition with practical effects like the ones that Jonathan has talked about. It's just a really, really creative way of conveying all kinds of ideas in this space where in the context of the story you have the ability to just kind of go wild and just have fun with it and mess around with different ideas, and you can kind of go back to that idea that it's all happening in a dream in some sense. I mean, even now, look, as the kind of background gets a bit blurry as the memory is slowly going and going and going.
It's got like signs that start deleting, objects that just disappear. Something I hadn't noticed until like looking at that scene there. People in the background have that like faceless effect on them, because obviously he's not paid attention to what they look like. That's something I hadn't noticed before.
That's the worst thing Elijah Wood does in the film, putting those glasses on at that point.
Yeah, no wonder Mary fucking hates it.
Yeah.
I do love that sort of bit where Patrick is like, Mary hates me. It's like, oh, no, she doesn't. Completely ignores him. Then later goes to get drinks and is like, oh, you didn't want any, did you, Patrick?
Yeah, what a Weasley fucking guy. God, Elijah Wood, good range on him.
Because like one of the other things I've seen him in other than Lord of the Rings is Sin City, where he is just terrifying.
But he's got very little to do in Sin City, so it really is just kind of how he looks that gets to you, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, some of it is the stylizing of the film, the sort of use of the glasses that he has, but I think a lot of it is just in the body language he's able to do.
He doesn't necessarily have like a... What I'm trying to say is that he doesn't look sinister. He looks like a regular guy to me, but he does have a way. I think with the right kind of writing, right kind of direction, he can manage to bring
those intense glares that he mastered from the Lord of the Rings, is where he's like, even there he's kind of doing it there. That little like scared, like kind of distant look to him, even though in this it's like recontextualized. He's distant because he's like a weirdo.
No, you know what he's really good at doing, Tony? He's just such a cowardly personality type in this film, and he can do that very well.
Yeah,
because he's got kind of quite a small stature in a way.
Yeah, he
and I
can
think
make his
that
presence
helps.
quite small.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the casting for this is actually, I know we mentioned it at the beginning, but it's like just, even though they're like famous people, like the faces are like all spot on. Like I feel like Jim Carrey, he has this like he is playing like this kind of shy gamer boy where he's quite distant. But I don't think if it wasn't Jim Carrey, you know, if it was like Ryan Gosling playing him, you'd be like, oh, this guy's a nerd, and you wouldn't like him. You'd be like, he's too unsociable. But Jim Carrey like adds like enough human element to it where like, yeah, I kind of see why Clementine's into it. And I also think there's a great moment where like Joel is like, oh, do I know you, to Clementine? And I think maybe it's just because the blue hair is like really common in Year of Our Lord 2022, but like Clementine does have the kind of face where like, have I met someone that looks like that?
I think
squinting my eyes, like, that's someone that I've met. And that kind of does add to the uncanny feeling.
I've forgotten schoolmates.
we had to erase the 5th member of the Mediate podcast. For their sins.
Yeah. You know, there's like a discussion point around this film, isn't there, to do with Manic Pixie Dream Girls, I think it's called, and how this is kind of quite subversive in that way. And I wondered what you guys thought of that, because it's not one that I've really thought about, and I'd be interested to find out a bit more.
Yeah, so I think Manic Pixie Dream Girl, like, I think one of the other things, well, there's a bunch of them brought up. The other one I've kind of seen that gets the same kind of discussion around it would be Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I think there's a
500 Days of Summer, right?
Yeah.
I think one's like that. Yeah, but it's the idea of it's not really a female character. It's just a prop for the male character to get over something, and it's usually sort of codified by just this kind of immediate connection and investment and involvement in them. So Clem really does embody it in the opening of this film. Just this sort of weird connection, seeming weirdly interested in him and sort of going and pushing him, basically. But that's kind of later explained away as like, well, it's the memories, because these are two people who knew each other and met each other and like came together in a fairly normal way. But the aspect I think that of Manic Pixie Dream Girl that it doesn't manage to escape from is that sort of kind of just a prop for the male character to realise something about themselves. Like, Clem is still a really well realised character and like has a good piece of line near the end where she's like, I'm just a fucked up girl trying to find my own peace of mind.
She says that twice as well.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to complete you, I'm not one of those types of people. But I still think it is one of the... because it is a film that focuses on Joel, it doesn't manage to get into Clem so much. Although she definitely feels so much more alive as a character. I'd say that probably quite a few of the ones that really do get that Manic Pixie Dream Girl sort of label. But yeah, this one is seen more as a subversion, but it is still like it's kind of getting away with it because that isn't actually the first time they've met, and for a lot of the film it's just his projection of her in his memories.
Yeah. Whereas in a lot of other films it's supposed to be a woman who exists in the real world with their own agency, their own independence, and it doesn't quite meet the sort of criteria that it should with like a fully fleshed out female character, I suppose.
It is a kind of Charlie Kaufman thing as well, because pretty much all of his protagonists are like the same person, which is Charlie Kaufman, quite literally in one of them. And he does a thing in a few films actually. Most recently, I'm thinking of Ending Things, where he kind of almost like admits that he can't write the female character by having the female character be like this kind of agent of male desire, or like viewed from a man's perspective, or like kind of a creation of the man, to kind of almost like a lampshading of like
a cop out.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think this one gets away with it the best because, as you say, like the complete construction of the plot is the majority of Clementine we see is through Joel's eyes, and it's kind of used quite well to deconstruct the trope.
Yeah.
But it is a part of all his films where in all of the films it makes you aware, maybe not being John Malkovich, but all the others it makes you, and that one has maybe the best female character. Yeah. But it's like, this is like either like a fantasy created by a male character, or Charlie Kaufman writing this script is writing this woman.
Yeah. Well, at least there's kind of some vague self-awareness.
Yeah.
Commenting on it as a flaw, I suppose.
Yeah,
just kind
I think
good.
I think the fact that they both like explicitly say that she's like, "Hey, I'm not a fucking cure-all ingredient to making your life better," and also the fact that the film does dedicate like a large chunk of time to showing how fucking horrible they are together or can be to each other, is, at least in my mind, enough for them to be like, no, for it to not to be like the kind of idea where it's like this fucking perfect woman comes along who dyes her hair and likes anime and video games.
I think what I quite like that I think also kind of goes against it. Oh,
okay.
Sorry, I have to stop because it's just funny. It's just so funny.
Like, fair enough when you've got a star-studded female cast, but like there are a lot of scenes where they're just like undressed, and people call anime out for it all the time. I'm doing it now. This is sexism. I actually hate that this is happening. Yeah, don't make attractive women undress on screen. Don't do it.
When watching Showgirls, and it's just like all of that female nudity. Like there are also male people that get undressed too, but like you only see like one male arse, I think, and it's like, where's the penis?
Where's Carl McLachlan's dick? Show it to us.
What I was going to say a second ago on the topic we were just talking about is, I think something that also helps it not fall into that kind of trope as much is the fact that even in the dream sequences, even when she's a projection, there are instances where she guides the plan of how she's
often the one coming up with the idea.
Yeah.
The first one where she's like, just try opening your eyes, and he's like mockingly being like, oh yeah, that'll work out. It worked.
I love that's my favourite Clementine as like a projection of Joel's scene as well, when he's like, why did you erase me? And like her response being like the most like, you know me, I'm erratic, you know. Like I love that, like he's like kind of having a conversation with himself.
Yeah. Her performance in that moment is great because it really sells this, like it's him almost puppeting her, being like, I don't know, maybe this, because you know this about me, or
and you can get some genuinely like really good, very self-aware comedic moments out of stuff like that as well, which I think is quite funny.
It's a good range from Kate Winslet, who kind of has to play a lot of things at a lot of different times. And my favourite stuff from her is that second half of the film, when they're working together. It is like this weird, like puppeted version of her who's like aware she's a construct trying to escape the machine. I think
that's what I'm talking about when I say self-aware. It is really fun to see how someone kind of grasps with that, but also just goes with it, which is also really fun.
Yeah,
I think that's cool. Yeah.
Random tangent about weird projections of female characters, but it's a big argument with Inception whether it passes the Bechdel test, because there's a very short scene between, I forget, the main female character and Mal's ex.
Is that Ellen Page?
Mrs.
I think Mal's
Mrs.
ex
Cobb?
is...
Also,
surely it's Dom's ex, that's Mal, right?
Well, does it work if the female character is now transitioned? How does that play?
God, that's that. I'd say the character is female,
well,
the actor is male. But anyway, just because like Mal's wife is just a projection of Mal's ideas of his wife that just keeps on invading his dreams.
To be fair,
Inception is like quite a superficial film in that way. Like it is kind of just a dumb action film.
Yeah, I would also say at that point, like it's basically like you were saying, anything that is just written by a man can't pass the Bechdel test. Even though the Bechdel test isn't really like this fucking grained thing for is it like feminist or not. It's more just like at some point, you're gonna be getting it filmed through like a man's lens if it is done by a man.
Yeah, well, I think it's
whether it's literally in the text or not.
Yeah, with this one, it's like, because this is kind of, I guess, Kaufman saying something about his interpretation of things. It very much is going to be through that lens. But I still think when it comes to dumb action movies like Inception, there's still that question of like, but why do they all have to be men?
Yeah.
Why is the only moment when two female characters are like talking with each other when it's like the projection of a man's wife trying to kill them?
Because they all had to be in suits in a boardroom because they were about to go and see Minions.
Women cannot wear suits, famously.
Yeah.
Yeah, the juxtaposition this does of just like these heavy emotional moments and then just the professionals just getting high and dancing over his bed is... I don't know. It says so much.
There are a lot of kind of parts in this film where he's in his dream sequence and it's like a dark surrounding, but there's a spotlight on him, and that happens frequently. And I always wondered if that was just to keep them lit, or if there's kind of some
like a chase.
I think it gives that feeling if they're being noticed, they're trying to...
that's true. That's a good point.
Or even
just it's the light of the moment, because there's another shot where it's like the two of them lying next to each other, and then she gets kind of whisked away out of the light into the darkness. So I think that's...
I had a question for you three. I can't remember if the film actually answers this explicitly, so you can tell me. But why do you think Mary sends all those tapes out back to their recipients?
I think it's kind of like the realization that she has when she realizes what it's like to learn of like an event that you had taken out of your brain. It's like, because normally most people don't ever learn, right? They get it removed and they're like, okay, that's gone forever.
Well, yeah.
Whereas her realizing that is like kind of it tells her that like, okay, this is actually, you should know, you should always know, and that's why she goes around and is like, fuck it, here's what happened.
Yeah, you should know if someone's sort of almost using you after the fact in a way. Like,
yeah, that's another good point.
Oh, that's true. The debate we kind of were having, Johnny, is does Mark Ruffalo know about the procedure that happened to Mary or not? Because you assume that he might have to do it. He says he doesn't know, but then the way he acts when he sees Tom Wilkinson's wife coming also makes me think that he does know. And it's almost like this like really unethical relationship where, you know, like not only is Tom Wilkinson way older and in a position of power and then has erased her memory, but now Mark Ruffalo is almost doing what Elijah Wood's doing with her and kind of exploiting that. I was kind of wondering what you guys think.
I honestly hadn't thought about that, because I think it's like one of the few parts in the film where Mark Ruffalo gives something that seems sincere enough to me when he says, no, I didn't, I swear. Because I don't think he doesn't like explode with this, no way would I ever do something like that. It comes across honest enough. But I hadn't really looked deeper.
Follow-up story he has of like, I had an inkling there might have been something between the two of you when I saw you like a while ago. Just the way you were chatting, it felt like you knew each other, like something like that. And like him having that story is kind of enough for me, because I can kind of take it either way. The way he sort of reacts to seeing Howard kissing his whatever their relationship is, where it's just like, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
Like, especially when the guy's, your boss's wife has shown up as well. I don't think there's a good way to respond. Like, you toot the horn and try and make them stop. Like,
yeah, you could definitely see it either way. It's one of those things that may be like an intentionally ambiguous moment in the story. Personally, I want to have faith that Mark Ruffalo is indeed a good guy.
That's because we all like Mark Ruffalo.
Yeah, because
he's like a nice guy.
He sacrificed his arm in Endgame, and I'm like, you know what, he's a good,
and he spent years
soul.
chasing down the Zodiac Killer as well. Like, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and he did whatever the hell he did in Now You See Me.
Yeah,
he's a good guy, you know.
He's a good guy. Oh yeah, he was in the best twist in film.
I do think they are trying to draw some equivalence between like the morality of what Elijah Wood's doing and what Mark Ruffalo did, though, a little bit. And like in the same way that he kind of he doesn't like, he kind of goes like, oh man, don't do that to Elijah Wood, but kind of allows it. And his behaviour is along the same line, and then you could say the same with Tom Wilkinson. And
I read it as it's that, but to a kind of different degree. Whereas, like, Patrick is someone who is very active in the way that he's abusing the system, whereas Mark Ruffalo is very passive in the way that he's doing it.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't realise that should have been his moment to be to Patrick, dude, that is not on, that is fucked up. But he doesn't, he goes along, he laughs with one of the mates, and I think his relationship is kind of similar in that vein, where he's just sort of like, I'm not using her. To me, this is why I read it as he doesn't know, but maybe he suspects, where it's just kind of a thing of like, he almost knows that this is kind of an unspoken perk of the job, but like not in the same way that Patrick's doing it. It's just like, here is someone I work with, I've got along with them. Bit weird with my boss, but okay. And so to me, I think that's the most interesting way to have his character is like in power, but in a different way. He's almost like asleep at the wheel, really, where like he's being a stupid, getting drunk, ransacking their places for booze, and like not paying attention and just dancing and having a fun time with the people in his life, and sort of not realizing how that is kind of being abusive, and then he's also not standing up to the abuse that Patrick is complicit in, or partaking in, which is sort of making Mark Ruffalo complicit by proxy.
And I also think there might be like the lens of maybe like, because he is like repulsed, but he also just doesn't do anything about it, and that might just be like a sort of aspect of like the film making, whoever was involved in the film making some morality coming through. If they're like, yeah, you would get mad, but then you wouldn't really do anything about it. Like, I don't think it does that as sort of like to show that he's passive. It might just be more of like a reflection of like, you would just be disgusted and then ignore it.
I think a lot of people would do that. They would they would have that moment where they're like, that is messed up, but wouldn't act on it when they really ought to, because they do have the power.
So I don't know how much. I don't know how much it is intentional or just like an artifact of them. That's how they would act. Like they think that's the good outcome.
Yeah. But in terms of like rating this as a piece of work,
true, definitely.
It doesn't really impact.
Yeah, you are right.
If anything, it's like quite a realistic depiction of what I think Mark Ruffalo's character would do in that situation.
Yeah.
He probably would just say, "Dude, that's gross. Why would you do that?" And probably just chalk it up to like, oh guys, boys being boys sort of thing.
And that's why Kirsten Dunst kind of making the decision kind of has more weight, because you see other characters like action or inaction. And it's another reason why the B plot is great. And when I first watched the film, it was the thing that kind of held me back from really loving it, because I was so invested in the Joel Clementine story. I always felt like I was being pulled away. But on the kind of second, third, or however many times I've seen it now, I am way more like into that B plot. And how it breaks up the pace a little bit, and also the way it kind of all ties together at the end.
I think it would be a little bit overwhelming if you had an hour and 40 minutes of just like a really intense... it's like a really intense journey into some guy's mind, and him just slowly losing every piece of like good thing that was related to a person that he really cared about. It's nice to have something that's just not a nice change of pace that also has a really big relevance to the story at the end of the day.
I think as well as sort of Tony brought up with Patrick being there to be this kind of narrative push of his kind of a villain, like that B plot as well is just
look, you would hate this if it was in an anime. I'm pulling the coin on you.
It's very funny.
Adults, Tony, not two 14-year-olds. There's a difference.
He's not an adult in that scene.
It is still a weird.
I'm flipping the coin on you. Oh, it's never okay when there are 3,000-year-old in a 14-year-old's body. But Jim Carrey can be
okay.
We almost get some Mark Ruffalo ass here, but the camera's just a bit too high. But anyway, previous scene we were all guffawing at is when Clem ends up just like flashing baby Joel under the table,
and that is,
which is a very weird scene. The whole baby Joel stuff is weird.
They even comment.
I mean, they do comment on it, and that is a good moment of like the fact that it is through like the mental lens of Joel is like, that is how men think. But also that's the film coming through of just being like, let's fucking show her underwear, do it.
But what I love in that scene we just watched, like it's an it's an example of other really, really great practical effects, because it's like, how is she so much taller than him? They must have had the table at the far end of a really long room to make him look so small. Like, it's really good. I don't think that was I don't think they had technology to kind of splice frames like they might do now. Maybe they do.
Yeah, if they
just forced perspective.
It's really, really good.
Cut it in front of.
There was something I wanted to talk about that we kind of went past a minute ago that sort of dials back to what Harry was saying earlier about how the process just inherently doesn't work. And what an aspect of this film that I think develops the plot in a really interesting direction is when Kate Winslet is out with Elijah Wood and they're on the ice and he says something that kind of triggers this sort of meltdown from her. And it's really, really interesting because you kind of know why that's happening in a sense like, well, he's just saying the things that someone once said to her and there's probably something in the back of her head that associates that with something. But I think it's really interesting because it just shows that it hasn't gotten rid of something completely.
Yeah.
If someone can just say something or act in a certain way, and I don't know why, but I think her reaction is so amazing because it's almost like she doesn't know why why she's so overwhelmed by it, but it is overwhelming in a sense.
It's such a powerful moment, I think, because you've either seen that moment between Joel and Clem. I can't remember if you've seen it once or twice by that point.
Well, yeah, they do it again, don't they?
Yeah, and so you know how it goes, and you're sort of thinking in that moment because you don't know exactly how well this whole like deleting memory stuff is going. You're like, it's narratively like this villain scene. You're like, I don't see how he doesn't like win her over in this moment. It's the same thing repeating, and then just the way she suddenly just sits bolt upright. I think there's probably like a musical sting that goes along with that as well, that just shifts you from the memories you've been reliving or like seeing between Joel and Clem. That does make it a very powerful moment. But yeah, and I do think that's the B plot is, because that is how you create in a more typical sense a villain of it, and the villain is this procedure, and so for a kind of more typical arc, you kind of need those scenes to be setting up, like here is this kind of terrible business where they're just mostly terrible people, and then you sort of need that moment at the end where it's defeated by sending off all of these all of the old recordings to everyone that's had the procedure, and sort of that gives you this kind of narrative arc and framing within what is a very unusually paced film. That's some of my. There's multiple reasons why that B plot is good, but that's one of the first time I watched it. At least that's probably what I would have said, as probably tried to convince you of just like, it needs to be there. You need the context around this.
Yeah.
It's also really satisfying when you just see her scream in Elijah Wood's face to leave her alone at some point.
Exactly.
I always love seeing that one scene.
Patrick defeated.
Patrick slain.
Uh,
Beast slaughtered. Yeah, it's a good film.
Tony, can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts on this film? Like, do you have any issues with it? Things that you dislike?
Well, I mean, I dislike that I did have very little time to watch this film over the weekend, so I watched it in 2 chunks, like around working and being passed out, asleep, getting my memories altered. But other than that, honestly, the more I watch this film, the more I think like, yeah, that's really cool. So I don't have any like glaring issues from it. I think it does a really good job of selling like this emotional arc, and there's a lot of range in this story. The way it covers like, you know, the really sad parts of Joel and Clem's relationships, the really happy parts, and the way it sells both of those in such like an intense way really drags me in personally. I'm like, yeah, their relationship, you know, good or bad, it is something that is worth remembering and was worth living, and, you know, is worth living again if they get the chance.
Definitely.
It's quite nice.
I love how it pretty much exactly what you said, but how much of yourself, when you're in a relationship, is like occupied and like tangled within another person, that in any attempt to kind of remove those bad memories, you lose so much of yourself and your sense of like self. And like you say, the way it balances the good and the bad, I think it's a good film. We should probably wrap up.
Yeah, because some of the scenes, so one of them is like them hanging out with a bunch of friends, and then also that party they went to in the beginning, that's another thing that's lost. Not that I think either of those two would have particularly enjoyed that party without each other, but anyway. Yeah, I think it's time to move on to scoring and final thoughts?
At this point here in the film, why don't any of them realise that Joel's fighting back? That's a reason why he keeps disappearing off the charts. Because they keep chalking it up to like, it's just the system being a bit glitchy.
I think
because they weren't paying attention.
Yeah, I think it's something they've never considered before in their line of work, that someone would change their mind about the procedure, or that it might not be something someone wants happening.
A question I have though is this, because Clem's decision to get the procedure is quite impulsive, or that's what Joel thinks anyway.
And also it makes sense, like timeline wise.
The fact that they both are compelled to go back to Montauk, and when his final memory of her is her saying, "Meet me in Montauk," you can kind of assume that maybe she had the same reaction where she changed her mind in the procedure and tried to fight it. But I mean, that is pure speculation. But the fact that they both kind of meet in the same place, you imagine the dream versions of them had kind of agreed.
I mean, it will obviously never happen, and it's also kind of good that there isn't like a spin-off film or a sequel or anything like that. But it genuinely would have been interesting to see exactly what this process would have been like for Clementine.
I do not want to see the Asuka Langley in Comatose with Patrick as Shinji version of this film.
That's great. Patrick as Shinji.
That's definitely what happened.
I know, but that would be a little bit different, because Patrick would carry on saying, I hate myself, I deserve to be hated, and you'd be like, yeah.
Another bit where Patrick gets in the mech.
This is a different shot with like books just kind of deleted. There's another cool. Yes. Anyway, good film. Watch it. Transitions are good. Scenes are good. The overall philosophizing of the film is good. The emotional core of the film is good. Yeah, that's one extra thing I want to.
It's weird furry porn.
The one little thing I do want to add is watching it with people over time. One of the more recent times I watched it with people, someone sort of left the room initially because they were like, this is very close to my emotional feelings around a relationship. And they were eventually we convinced them to come back in and give it a try. But another of my friends, like coming into this film, had the feeling of, maybe I'll get back with that person I tried it with before, then watched the film and then decided, no, I'm not going to. Which I think for him was the right decision with that.
Do you think the film is trying to say the opposite though?
I think it is, but I think it depends on, like, in this situation with their relationship, I think probably worth trying again. But I think as a hot and shot rule, try and get back with your ex at any given moment.
Yeah, I don't think that's
not the thing. But like if you meet again and it starts kind of working again, then see what happens.
But in going through a process like this, I think it's also possible that it can have such an impact on you that you realise that this person is just so important to you that can be enough to make you realise. Well, I mean, he realised it so early on. He's like, God, I have made such a catastrophic fuck up here. I need to do everything that I can to hold on to her. And if she has the same reaction, then I think if you take away from the fact that it'd be different if it was a toxic relationship. I said this before, I'll say it again. The one in Phantom Thread I do not endorse, not for a second. But in this case, do they make mistakes? Does Joel say stupid things from time to time? Yeah, sure. He does. Anyone does in any relationship, but it doesn't seem like a particularly toxic one to me.
No,
I don't think so. So if they want to give it another go, I think good on them. Yeah. Not that every couple should, just that in this case, I think the film gets it right. And it gives you that very kind of uplifting ending that you want as well, that you really want from a film like this. You don't want the Kaufman ending, you want the Gondry ending.
But it is the Kaufman ending though, I think. I
don't think it says they're doomed to carry on living with the same faulted relationship over and over again.
I think it does, but they're happy with that. That it is like they pretty much say, like, you will come to think all these things about me. And they go, okay, fine. We'll do it again for the good bits. Yeah. And I think that is the Kaufman ending of they keep erasing each other but keep falling in love. And then they keep just making that decision again and again.
Yeah, but you'd like to think that final scene where they listen to each other pointing out all their flaws gives them the opportunity to be a bit more considerate.
Yeah,
maybe.
And then it will lead to better things. I like to think that every time this happens, I think that's a little bit depressing if it carries on going on in a cycle like that. But every time it happens, they get a bit better. They get more in touch with each other. It's good to see. I don't think the ending is a sad one at all for me, even if it might have some kind of depressing implications.
I think it's existential, but it is really profound and like nice, and the most romantic ending you can have in like a romance film, I'd say.
Yeah, I do want to
like universal.
I think the way it chooses to end does have this kind of ambiguous end of like maybe this time will be different, and I think that's part of the optimism of like you're willing to put up with the good and the bad because there's enough good there that you're like okay this is worth giving a shot, even if it does end up bad it's still worth doing. And it is true, but I also think there's maybe like an element of like, well, now they know, now they know how it ends, like Dark Souls style. Again, this is the Dark Souls of rom-coms, because they've died on the boss run so many times. They're actually like, no, we've learned each other's move patterns. We can both. Okay, it's metaphors break it down. We can defeat the enemy that is like our relationship problems after enough goes around, and that's kind of like that sense of like, okay, it's worth it. It's worth it for the journey, and also maybe the fact that it'll work out this time.
I mean, if you look really carefully in the final shot when they're running together in the snow, you can just see this like skinny guy holding his own ectoplasm on the beach. Who is the final boss of the film? Only if you buy the DLC.
Well, speaking of ending things, I think it's probably reaching the time to wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking of ending things, so let's do this. Let's wrap this up.
I'm getting tired of fighting the Nameless King over and over again, so I'm just going to go end the game.
Alright, so what are our final scores? I don't know who wants to go first.
Jonathan, I think you should go first.
Just set the tone. I'm interested, Jono, that you picked this and to hear what you said, because you are famously a relationship disbeliever in films.
What? What are you talking about?
Jono's always the person, unless I'm misapplying
I understand what he
this.
means.
Yeah.
I'm usually the one that's like, I don't buy this relationship.
That's what I mean. He's famously a relationship disbeliever.
Okay, but Tony, you could have phrased that a little bit better.
I phrased it in the most perfect possible way. Phrased it in the way of the truth.
You said Jonathan is famously a relationship disbeliever.
He's an incel.
Yeah, like, how does that paint him in any kind of positive light at all?
In film is an important caveat.
Oh, I tell you, that is so fucking funny what you just said. Oh my god.
I love this bit with the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh yeah, they say the name of the film, don't they? Yeah.
They do.
Yeah, those quotes are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blessed are the forgetful.
What was the name of the film you said at the beginning, Tony? You said like internal...
Or the internal shot light of the Spotless Mind.
That was it.
Because I don't have a brain. I've had the procedure done too many times.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a good point there, Tony. Of like, in a lot of films, I am just like, it just feels like this is a thing that happened. I do not believe how you could have gotten together. I don't see the chemistry between you. Whereas I definitely see the chemistry between these characters. Yes, it's weirdly backwards, a bit manic pixie dream girl at the beginning, but there's a reason, and it is all a projection from the main character. But it is, for something that is very out there, it is surprisingly grounded, and especially in that kind of emotional core. And so for me, this film is an easy 10. I think it's probably been a 10 since the first time I've watched it. And since I've just
you
watched
certainly
it
gave it a 10 in the tournament that we did, yeah.
So many times, yeah. So, yeah, this probably is the film I've seen the most.
Yeah. And Jonathan would never have watched this film if it wasn't for me.
I believe I picked the film for competition.
Yeah, you're right, you did pick the film. But you wouldn't have watched it that early if it wasn't for me, because it was my suggestion we do the tournament.
I wouldn't have watched it specifically in Strasbourg.
Yeah, if you lost all your memories of Ethan, you would lose your memories of this film.
I was about to say that word for word.
Seriously.
Harry, you fucking read my dream journal.
We have a history.
You say that, but like I have seen this film with
You're Patrick.
like multiple people over time. So
I really love the performance that this woman gives. That is the wife of Tom Wilkinson. Like she
Yeah,
has one
yeah.
scene, but absolutely kills it.
She's a bit like.
reminds
Do you
me-
remember that? You're going to say the same thing I'm going to say.
Network.
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! All three of
Yes.
us were thinking Network. That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Where
the
it
woman
is-
who won an Oscar for like one scene worth of acting, but she's so good in that one scene that she gets an Oscar for it. Yeah,
And it is the same kind of beat, really, isn't it?
it is a little bit. Yeah, like
Maybe
disappointed
that's-
at her husband who doesn't treat her with enough respect. Yeah.
Maybe that's just like one of those kind of like emotional story beats that just feels like it is so big and deserves an Oscar. But no, it definitely is great performances. Anyway, who wants to follow me up?
I can go next.
Okay.
So you saying it's always been a 10 for me? I think I said this on Mad Max. Like it was like an 8, and then I've just kind of watched it more and more and liked it more and more each time. And I think at this point it is my favorite Charlie Kaufman film, because I think everything is better with an editor. Obviously Synecdoche is just pure excess, and that's kind of like why I enjoy that. But I like that, you have a humanist filmmaker with like a lot of visual invention, taking the kind of very interesting ideas and adding some humanity to it, like sexing it up a bit and having some fantastic performance, like central performers. The way I didn't kind of chime in this conversation, but the way it uses Jim Carrey, I think is really interesting, and it's very different to every other film that he's ever made. To the point where I actually don't think it's the best Jim Carrey film, because it's so out of left field. Like I think Truman Show is a better encapsulation of what he can kind of bring to a role, whereas this is a completely different beast. But yeah, it's fantastic. I love the John Bryan score as well. I kind of think I brought it up once, but yeah, it's an eclectic mix of kind of very kind of like sentimental music and like the kind of weirder shit he does in other stuff.
Yeah,
But,
I have one of the themes on like my like playlist of music that has no lyrics, but it's not something I can actually play whilst working, because more than pretty much any other song with lyrics, just hearing the notes and that sort of melody just hits with such an emotional level that it just distracts me from whatever I'm doing. I just have to kind of sit there and just sort of experience the music.
It is like a fantastic synergy of like different artists who kind of came together on like a really, really good film that I'm going to give a 10 out of 10 to. It's definitely one of my favourite films. And doing this podcast has made me realise I really want to do a Phantom Thread podcast. So, just from what Ethan said. So, we'll have that to look forward to one day.
Sonia, I think you should go next.
Okay. So this film, actually, Ethan, I know you said earlier that there was but do I have anything bad to say about this film? And I do remember now that, like, yeah, when I first started watching this, especially with the fact that it depicts like a quite harsh breakup, I'm like, am I going to be a coward like Jono's friend? Am I going to be like, this is too bad for me? But I was like, no, I did power through, and it does turn it around to tell a very compelling story. I think just watching like clips of it now is like the biggest score booster for multiplier for the film. Because I'm like, yeah, that cut was really good. Like, this film has a great visual flair, and more than any other film that I can remember at all is like the way actors display emotions with their faces when on screen is like, what? I like noticed it. Which I never do.
That's because all you watch is Marvel films.
Yeah, that's because all I watch is Marvel films and anime. And
They just raise the eyebrow when
Yeah.
doing the quip.
yeah,
So you're saying
yeah.
they're going to raise my memory?
And say things like, I want to kill chaos.
That just happened.
telling me
That is a very anime line.
we're in some kind of spotless mind. Yeah, just the way that every actor in this film, especially Clementine's actress Kate Winslet, can both go from like these explosive outbursts of emotions to very subtle, like intense repressed emotions such as hatred, rage, is incredibly compelling, and it really shows that like the magnetism of the relationships in this film.
Yeah, I think Kate, going off of what you just said really quickly about it, I think Kate Winslet is probably the most fun person to watch in this film. She looks like she's having a blast. More fun than any other person in
And
the film.
not just because of all the scenes where she's getting dressed.
Me getting undressed.
Yeah, of course. Wow, they actually just filmed it in reverse. Just to save on the film reel.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I really do like this. It's skyrocketed in the number I'm gonna give it over the course of this podcast, and me just thinking about it to the point where I'm like, what if it could go even higher if I just stalled? But I will give it a solid 9 out of 10. It is a very heartwarming film, despite being about a breakup. It's very optimistic. It's like a good life lesson, which media should be. It should tell you how to live your life and how to be happy instead of why you should kill yourself, which is American Scientology. Yeah.
I think you're the only person who calls that film
American Sign.
American Sign. American Sign.
You didn't get a single word of it right. Why were you convinced the easy bit?
Why were you thinking of American
Because
Psycho when you said signed off?
Psy is one of the syllables. Also, there's a person named Patrick in both films.
Oh, that's true.
True.
Yeah, that's why I relate things that have the same names. Joel, Patrick.
Last of Us.
Ethan.
Ethan.
So the reason I wanted you to go to next, Tony, was because I thought that I had a sneaky suspicion you might give this a 10. And then I thought maybe I would give it a 10 based off of that. I don't think I will. And it's not
ruined it.
I know, but I might have done. That's why I said.
No, we should erase the memories. Do it again.
If we ever do Retcon 3, you know. But anyway,
we're like a Marvel film. We're teasing the Endgame.
Yeah. But what I was going to say was that I don't know why this isn't a 10, because I really don't have any like glaring problems with it. I've got one issue with the film, and it's not even a big thing at all, really. It's like a Nicholas Hoult isn't very good kind of flaw, where it's just not really that important. But for a film that demonstrates that it understands like relationships and people on a really, really deep level, I think a lot of, we talked about this, Kirsten Dunst dialogue is like very heavy-handed and one note, and doesn't really allow for a lot of like, I guess, depth in some sense. Not to say that she's a poorly written character or that she doesn't have any depth at all, just that it's so clear how she feels about Howard in particular, and she shows that so often, so much, that there isn't really any nuance there for me. I'd rather it have been something that we learn casually over time and in the way that she reacts when he finally arrives and when she has dialogue exchanges with him, rather than basically making everything that she says about him for like the first half of the film. Is that okay?
That's loud.
You don't really like Mark Ruffalo in it either, do you?
No, I think he's all right. No, he's okay. He's okay. I don't know. Normally, I've got a problem with Kate Winslet and American accents. I don't think she normally does them quite well, but she actually does sound very American in this. So I've not really got any problems with that. I'm fully immersed. Yeah, so I think I'm going to give this similarly to Tony. It's like a very high 9 out of 10. I think it's fantastic. Like I said, I think my favourite thing about this film is the fact that it balances these two different stories that come and meet each other on a similar topic and scenario from different angles, exploring slightly different things, but they work so well with each other that it's really amazing to watch. And I also just love it when you watch something that has I think I've said this before, like a conceit, that it then follows through to some kind of logical conclusion and explores it in so many different facets and ways. Like we talked about this quite a lot, but how Patrick comes into it as well is just an extra facet on already quite a multi-layered kind of subject matter, that it just makes you consider all kinds of different things about something that is a really interesting idea. Like, what if there was some kind of device that could erase memories, and how would it impact the real world? It's the kind of things that I just think about and have conversations with after I've watched this film with people. Go on, Johnny.
It was something that I was also going to bring up. I think this is just one of those films where after you watch it, if you've watched it with people, you sit and talk for like half an hour, 15 minutes, half an hour, just about because there's so many things you can sort of talk about, just sort of like, do you think they got back together? Did you think that was good? Would you have this sort of procedure? What impacts do you think that has with the world? There's sort of so much to sink your teeth into. One of the second time I watched it was the sort of the film society at my university, and I sort of remember I brought one of my friends, and then we just sort of lingered back there with a couple of people from that society and just stood in the room after everyone had left and just sort of talked about it, what we took from it and all those things. It's got so much to it. You just kind of sink your teeth into it.
I think you have to be a particular kind of person for this not to leave any kind of imprint on you, because it's just such an imaginative idea for a story that you won't ever see again or executed in quite the same way or with the same level of, I guess, expertise.
Yeah, there's a
it's
lot
really
of
good.
Fundamental, like, resonant human emotions in it, and as well, like, the central conceit being around this, like, cool sci-fi gimmick almost that raises like questions like, what would I do if I had that? Kind of makes me think of Limitless. Where it's like the same appeal I get of like, what would I do with NZT is represented in this, like, what would I go through with this memory erasure procedure, and the way that it teaches you, like, actually you probably shouldn't give yourself brain damage. It's a good lesson to give growing kids.
I know that obviously you're going to do some editing, Johnny, but if we wanted to reach the exact runtime of this film, you can cut this out if you want. But I wanted to ask you why you like this story but dislike something like To the Moon, which I think is like pretty much the same. It's like a knockoff version of it.
I even mentioned To the Moon earlier on.
Yeah. I kind of like what this does that doesn't, that kind of makes it click with you. So in such a vastly different way, is it?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, To the Moon's a while ago, and I think the big thing with that is it never grasped me, I don't think. I never began to feel with the characters. And I think, remembering what I said at the time, I think some of it was just the difficulty of trying to... I mean, obviously, because it was a big thing I felt at the time. It was like, clearly this is a big emotional thing. Why didn't I get in sort of coming up with ideas, being like, well, maybe there's no, like, voice acting. I'm just looking at pixels here. Possibly that being some of it, of just like, I'm not so... There's not so much human here to drag into, but at the same time, it was like, well, I get emotionally invested in books, so like...
Yeah, and you watch plenty of cartoons which aren't live action, you don't have a problem investing yourself in those.
Yeah, so I guess part of it is I don't really know. I think some of it was the way in which I had to approach To the Moon, where like it's a game, you need to invest in it, you need to solve the puzzles, you need to click on the things, and that became a chore in the game, especially like standing out now. Just one of the moments that really frustrated me was that horse riding segment where I just did not know what to do. So it's like one of those things like, what if Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but like one of the scenes went on for like half an hour because the characters didn't know what to do. Like,
what is this horse? I don't remember any horse riding.
Yeah, I remember the horse riding scenes. That's why I laugh, because I'm like, yeah, video games, you just lock you in like a mini game bit where you just have to do this weird thing to do the rest of the story.
I got stuck on that horse.
So you know what I do.
What's so challenging about it?
It's not challenging. It just doesn't tell you what you're meant to do. You're meant to click on the people riding around, but like the game. Because I know I also bring it up because I was literally playing To the Moon today, and did that horse riding bit, and it's not as bad as I remembered. No. But I think part of the reason as well is To the Moon is almost like constructed almost like a mystery. Whereas I think Eternal Sunshine has twists, and it's like the entire structure of the film is a twist, but it always presents you with enough information that it doesn't feel like it's trying to like go like, aha, I've got you. Mm-hmm. Like it always feels like it's presenting you like and by presenting it in a weird way, it puts you in the perspective of the main character, and you know as much as he does. And I think that's cool.
What I would really like to do now is to just come up with other films that Jonathan wasn't keen on and say, so Jonathan, you like this film, but why didn't you like Taxi Driver?
So one of the things I was going to bring up is, this reminds me in a way of Steins Gate, or rather like the second half of the first series of Steins Gate.
So the part I haven't seen.
The part Tony doesn't know, so like I can't really go into too much depth on it. But basically, it's kind of the middle portion of this film where it's this character trying to work out in a universe that's almost like conspiring against him. Basically, how do I escape from this, and having to relive memories again and again, and it being this important person in his life who helps him realise the ways he can solve it. So in the Steins Gate, it's a sort of time loop he's kind of going through, but it's a self-enforced one because he's trying to change this event in time, and so he keeps on having to relive these moments to try and change something up about it. And it's only when he starts like communicating with one of the other characters that he begins to make some headway and actually starts working out a way to change it. And so it has that kind of similar note, and almost a similar thing as well, because him living these days over and over starts blossoming a bit of a relationship between him and this character he's relying on for help. But obviously, from her perspective, she's just kind of getting a couple of days, whereas he's sort of getting an unknown amount of time, sort of growing and beginning to trust her. But anyway, so that kind of has similar notes there. So that's what that reminds me of.
I don't think we have to drag this out any longer. We can finish the podcast.
Okay,
right?
so we should leave on the tease for the final Mediate.
Oh yeah, Tony, we've still got yours to do, haven't we?
Exactly. So, doing this film did make me want to consider doing Disco Elysium for some thematic parallels. However, given that we have all finished it, and that Hollow Knight is a...
Define finished.
Oh my god.
Okay, seeing the end
you got to remember you're talking in front of Harry.
Harry is a pro gamer.
We need to be
sorry, Harry. I have not hitlist the.
Harry
so arrogant.
Harry has the world record speedrun for Hollow Knight.
I am Ari Gibson. I developed Hollow Knight. I'm those 3 Australian guys.
He knows the names. I don't even know.
No, so, Harry has the speedrun for complaining about people he doesn't feel have completed the game.
So, the hit indie Metroidvania sensation from, I believe, 2017, I'm looking at the laptop on in front of us. Hollow Knight is what I will do for my final Mediate, the end of Mediate, you know. It all comes back to this. We'll join you next episode for what's the speedrun time, Jono?
Time without loads, 32 minutes. 16 seconds.
I've actually beaten that during this podcast multiple times.
Yeah. I mean, Harry, you are famously pest.
That's true.
Holding the number 1 slot for the no major glitches.
I was hoping you do. I had a feeling you're gonna drop a disco twist on us.
Yeah, I mean, a disco. I'm teasing it now, like we're teasing Endgame. It will be done. You know, fucking Samuel L. Jackson's going to show up. It's like, I'm assembling together a team to do a podcast on Disco Elysium.
Tony, if you make me do Disco Elysium for your final pick and not for podcast 2, I'll make you do Sekiro for podcast 2.
I fucking cannot.
That's your
I bet I cannot beat Sekiro. I'm literally too much of an old man. No, Hollow Knight is actually a great game. It is such a beautiful, amazingly well-crafted little video game that we have all played. And
all love, I think.
All I give an 100 out of 100. But we will see in the next episode.
Yeah, I was having some fun thinking like, ooh, 38, you know, this is a good score for this episode. I might come out and then like scroll down. I was like, well, the second is still good. Second is nice.
Johnny, are you going to edit this podcast?
Yeah.
Because if you don't, it would just be a really fun like director's commentary on Eternal Sun. Like you just watch it alongside.
Yeah. The thing is, when I say I'm going to edit it, I'm not sure there's much I am going to do. Like, well,
if you send us to the right place, they could do a re-release of this film with the Mediate podcast commentary as like a DVD menu option.
There's got to be a way you could just edit the WAV to be
and we'll have
track.
it, and they'll have it on the DVD that Jonathan is famously a relationship disbeliever.
That's the tagline. that's like the title shot, like Jono, relationship disbelief.
It would really fuck you up to find to receive the
God.
like.
I can't even begin to imagine what this must be like.
Maybe
yeah.
what she does is bad. Maybe the real villain is.
Pure vessel?
Look,
Yeah.
they literally like will put the snipers on us if we release a review of something that is longer than the thing. Because at that point, why are we there? Just watch it, bro.
How long's the end of Evangelion again, Toby?
We were gonna get okay. That look,
We doubled
we
that.
were talking about Neon Genesis Evangelion as well. We get to slide that in. That's fine.
Yeah, we just need to hold out for a little bit longer.
Oh,
you know, this is the what if we stayed ending. You know.
No, I didn't get all the collectibles for the true ending.
What do we have to talk about then?
Let's just upload this audio file unedited. Let's just stick it on the internet forever.
I think the
Should we
fact
talk about Johnny's home address again?
I
How can I use that?
I think the fact that we will erase Lawrence Dietz from our memories is actually bad. You know, the fact that there was good and bad to our relationship.
Oh,
with
Tony,
him.
do you want to tell them about what happened on the Delabru stream the other
Oh,
week?
where you just said my full name and the town I live in to the 7 people that watched that stream and also a couple strangers.
It would be very funny if, like, I'm imagining a scene of you and Lawrence in the same room while this podcast is playing, and that line from Nick and you're like, I don't mean that.
Do you think we'd ever have Lawrence back for an episode?
Do you like Jim Carrey's jumpers in this film? Do you think he's got a good out sense?
No, by the way.
Thanks,
yes,
Tony.
by the way.
No, I think I do like both of their outfits really. It's got a good aesthetic to it.
I feel
think.
like her hairstyles match my t-shirt pretty well.
It is blue. Everything is blue. My girlfriend is blue. Dabba dee dabba die.
I'm going to come out and say it because it's at the end of the podcast. No one's going to listen. Kate Winslet, she's so hot in Eternal Spotlight of the Sunless Mind.
Yeah.
She is very attractive,
Oh.
yeah. I mean, not
That's-
quite Brie Larson
That's
levels
why
in
I
the
gave
room,
it a
but,
9. Because if there wasn't a scene where she was undressed, it'd get like a 6.
It's all about that
I-
scene where she's like, got the pill on his face.
Yeah, so the scene where she's his mum's friend. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, maybe Charlie Kaufman has some weird, like, fetishes, you know.
That might be understatement of like the universe.
I am curious for like in a week or so time when you look back and you're just kind of like, "Oh, why did I give it a 9? I was just blinded by the fact I was watching the film at the same time.
Yeah, that's to be fair, is like how I feel about like Batman Ninja. Like if you put Batman Ninja on right now, I'd be like, this is a 10 out of 10. If I'm not watching it, it's like the most mid film ever created.
Jonathan, I thought you were about to say that he was blinded by Kate Winslet's looks, and that's why he gave it a 9.
Look, to be fair, there's a lot of attractive people in this film. Like, come on, Jim Carrey, Mark Ruffalo.
David
Tom
Cross.
Wilkinson, yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that's surely the worst plot point of this film is that, you know, he's so attractive that you'll fall in love with him even if you forget him. Like Howard, come on, he's no man.
yeah, but you could tell that he used to be attractive. You know,
Yeah,
his eyes
I think
did
it's
sparkle.
definitely a love for his mind manifested physically, I think.
Also, his huge fucking penis, which they only show in the director's cut.
Charlie Kaufman fought to keep that in, but Gondry wasn't having any of it.
Release the penis cut.
Is it a 4:3 aspect ratio?
No, 3-4.
Black and white.
3:4. Oh.
As you know, they may forget the memory of the penis, but like deep in your soul, you know, part of you remembers.
Just
That's
look
true
at
love.
look at their acting. You know.
Yeah,
It's-
every time.
The correct way to listen to this is to be watching the film alongside it. And it'd be funny if there are edits as well, because it would just mean that it doesn't line up at all.
Yeah.
We're actually narrating the director's cut of the film. You guys can't see right
Yeah,
now.
Well,
actually,
it's short.
God, getting that shot was so hard because, like, we had to line the camera up and everything. You know, fucking Todd McClintock kept coming in with his bloody machine, whirring away.
That vacuum cleaner, oh my god, it keeps me up at night.
Oh,
still
that
thinking
classic
about
Mediate, fucking saying people's full names and not caring. Hey, Ethan O'Brien.
that. Ethan O'Brien from Maidenhead.
From Maidenhead. Tony Wilson from Maidenhead.
What if we all fall out, guys? You know, what if this is the last podcast we ever do? Should
Well, we've
we
got
ever,
one more to do.
Should we
famously.
ever come back?
It's a funny thing about this
I'll
shot
do it again.
because on the day Jim
Okay.
was very upset. So I had to kill off enough cards and clear the beach for him. And then he was much more cooperative.
Oh
and see.
god.
I didn't realise it like loops that bit of footage though. Maybe that's implication that the whole film was a dream.
The film realised it was a video game.
It cuts back and it's actually Michel Gondry's having the procedure to remove making this film from his mind. That's why he's never made a film as good as this ever again.
Oh, there we are.
I thought you were going to say that it was going to cut back to like the spinner thing from Inception just twirling around on a
Cuts
beach.
back to Dom Cobb.
So fucking calm.
Yeah,
Right.
actually, fuck Inception being like the hottest film ever made. This one. Actually.
It's not hotter than Inception. It has Tom Wilkinson and Mark Ruffalo in it, and Mark Ruffalo's got like a massive bush on his head.
Yeah,
The
but
biggest
I think
glasses.
what this one has is just that realness and kind of emotion and like connection between the characters, whereas like Inception is that kind of fake hotness.
Yeah, it's just like dudes in suits going to see Minions.
Who's the guy who turns left in Inception? What's his name?
Also,
Yusuf.
Yusuf.
Is it Yusuf?
It is
No,
Yusuf.
actually, no, I forgot about
so,
Yusuf. Maybe Inception.
Well, we have
Maybe
reached
12 Angry
the
Men.
credits. We mustn't linger too much, otherwise we will
Danny
go.
Aiello the third.
Yeah.
That's it. Did you see that, Aaron?
I saw a guy called Pee Wee. I like the idea. Like I feel like the podcast is good when we're on the same run. There's like an energy to it. I'm sure it's like a way worse list.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though? The last 3 podcasts that we did, Apocalypse Now, Mad Max, and Eternal Sunshine, I thought they were all like 3 of the best podcasts we've ever done. Genuinely, they've been so fun to just talk about.
It's a shame that we're all going to die after we do final Mediate Hollow Knight and never make another podcast again.
We have to get the secret ending
Sealed in
to
the
Final
black
Mediate
egg.
Hollow Knight if you use the dream nail on us.
So I personally stopped after like Mediate 2008.
Tony, could you pass me my phone, please?
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure.
And we really should stop recording now.
Alright. Get minced.